was briefly addressed, but there, as staff recollects, there was no commitment on the part of College Township to fund that difference in cost. The issue has now come up, and we have a cost for the 8-foot path as opposed to the 5-foot path. And Dawn?
Yes, basically they did a base bid for the 5-foot path, and then they did an alternate for the additional 3 feet to make it an 8-foot path. And the additional 3 foot wide was bid out at like $110 a lineal foot. And it's roughly, and I don't have it in front of me, but roughly 970 feet of path. So the total bid for the just the widening, the extra 3 feet, is $107,000. This comes to approximately $330 per square yard. And the path is going to be 4 inches of wearing coarse bituminous and then 4 inches of stone. And using those, you know, the values that you would get for those, the $330 per square yard's insanely high.
That number seems insanely
I
high.
mean, I would think, you know, including excavation and some of the other incidentals, topsoiling, seeding, and things like that, I would think $120, $140 a square yard, even with the high prices of asphalt now. And it's hard for me to recommend $300 a square yard. I mean, as it is, there'll be a 5-foot path. There's a couple other things that make it sort of odd. Is when you're paving a 5-foot path, you need a specialty paver. Most of the paving contractors around here don't have 5-foot pavers sitting around. So that would mean renting or leasing a specialty paver for however many days that would take. Whereas if you widen it out to 8 feet, all of a sudden you have the 8-foot wide paver that you have sitting in your yard. The other thing is, when you're trying to pave a 5-foot wide path and you have triaxle trucks coming up to the paver, you really have about 7-foot wide disturbance going down through. So I'm sort of questioning why that 3 foot is that much when you're really going to, even if you're only paving 5-foot wide, you're going to be disturbing 7-foot wide the length.
So the point of mentioning this is that we're going to be bringing this back to council. Because I think that we're being asked, what are you going to do? And there was not necessarily an agreement at the time that we would do anything. But I just wanted to make council aware that that's an issue that we're dealing with. We'll come back at the next meeting. We'll have it on the agenda. We can have the conversation. We can have representatives in the room if we need them, and we can have that conversation. But I wanted to take the opportunity to, given the report, to let you know that that's an issue that needs to be dealt with.
To me, it sounds like there needs some clarification. You know, the 330 for the entire, but we're paying for 3 feet, not 8 feet.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the rest of the path, the first 5 feet, that was all part of a big lump sum. So you really, I don't know that they got a schedule of values yet that says what is that path. At the last I talked, I don't think they had a schedule of values.
Okay.
Hey, could I take the opportunity to bring up something too on Millbrook Marsh I just thought about? It wasn't on the agenda, but in the discussion, I found out that Park and Rec are dealing with damages down there. What do you call it?
Liquidated damages?
No, vandalism.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, which kind of surprised me. They don't know for sure because they haven't caught anybody, but the assumption is there's kids there at night, they're busting up the railings on the boardwalk, and they're making a terrible mess in the restrooms.
Well, it's not just Millbrook Marsh.
Okay.
I've been in communication with
Okay.
State College Police Chief Gardner on this issue. It's a real concern. It's an escalation kind of an issue. So, we started out some, wayward kids vandalizing, doing a few dumb things, and it's grossly escalated. And so this has become a real issue, and the police know that. So.
Okay.
They're
So we're
involved
doing
and they're
what we
on
can
it.
to
Yes.
help part, okay.
It goes into our bigger discussion on Dale, when we were talking about the Daleview Park and
Yeah.
we want to get our parks being
Scope creep.
visited. Yeah, yeah. So interestingly, the escalation right after we had that discussion, but anywho, that's all I had. Thanks, Eric. Carla, anything? Okay.
No, I mean, I had the LTEC meeting, but it's covered in the manager's report.
Great. Dustin?
No, none.
So Parks Governance met on September 26th. The main discussion was that the committee felt like it had gone as far as it could by itself, and that as we originally considered, feel we're ready for a facilitator to get us over the last mile. We voted on that, to proceed with that. Along with it, we voted to postpone our remaining meetings until that facilitator is in place. We designated staff, COG staff, to select the facilitator and get them up to speed, hopefully get them up to speed by our February meeting. You know, we'll have reorganization in January and then go from there. We adjourned early on that one. That was good. We had I think, as you're all aware, the COG staff distributed the 2023 detailed budget. It came in with a shocking 16.86% increase. College Township's part was over 23%. COG staff acknowledged that they knew that wasn't tenable, but still, it was the culmination of elected officials saying yes, 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 and then it all came together as a number, and that was a big number. And in a fairly unprecedented event, the Center Region managers issued a joint memorandum to COG staff and the Finance Committee, further confirming that position was untenable and offering some suggestions towards that. So instead of beginning to review the budget at the September 29th meeting, a motion was made and passed to remand the detailed budget back to COG staff with a guideline. There's that word that College Township has pushed for many, many years. But this time it went forward, went back to COG staff with a guideline of 8%. And then between the finance chair and the COG staff, we regrouped and came up with a new schedule, issued some new documents. What is basically occurring is anything that wasn't in motion or existing in 2022 is being pulled out of the budget and will be approved on a line-by-line item. That bare bones budget is about 8%. So they met the guideline on stuff. We had our first actual review today. It was 3 hours. The managers were kind enough to join us again for that one. It involved some of the, I'll call it low-hanging fruit of the budget stuff, but it was a start, and we made significant headway into it. I think Mr. Long made an analysis that if everything that was proposed occurred, it dropped it to was it 18 or 22? I got numbers floating all around.
Honestly
It's in the,
have no
yeah, I think it
recollection.
was 18%, but the Finance Committee actually added a couple more based on a second memorandum from the Center Region's managers, and those items are gonna go. The way we're gonna do it is we're gonna ask all the questions, get all the answers to make informed decisions, and then make yes and no decisions at our wrap-up meeting so that we can look at the totality of everything we're saying yes and no to, and everything. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're saying about the budget overall. Everybody's saying yes, 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 and it escalates. So we didn't want to repeat that same process in the budget review. So far so good. I would ask Adam, again, Adam's attended both sessions, which is usually he leaves me without adult supervision, but this time he's been checking, so.
Well, that's worked out so well. So, I think that the managers anticipate having, presence at all of the budget, workshops. The COG Finance Committee is going to have. And I also anticipate that we're gonna continue to try to offer helpful suggestions or options, for accomplishing the goals both of the Finance Committee and also some of the program goals that COG's identified. So we'll continue to do that, so you'll be seeing a lot of us, as well as the finance directors.
Yep. Yeah, we, like, today's meeting was, I felt was very good. We had great input from the managers, great input from the finance directors. We moved forward. You know, candidly, COG staff didn't do anything we didn't tell them not to.
I agree.
And so, you know, I want to make that absolutely clear. We need to do a better job, and one of the things that's going to probably come out of this is we're going to have a special meeting on going forward, and the managers have proposed some things, you know, things that probably should have been proposed a long time ago, but, you know, now that it's all come into focus, we're going to use that energy to try to build a better mousetrap. So our next meeting is October 11th, and then what was going to be our wrap-up meeting is going to be another review meeting on the 13th, and then the wrap-up meeting is scheduled for the 17th. So we'll do the best we can. I'm using, you know, all of our conscientious discussions throughout the year has helped me and informed me to be able to move through this process. And I go back, I've said it many times in meetings, be careful, you know, all the yeses, they add up and they end up with being real dollars. So that's come to roost, and now we're gonna, you know, try to find a better way. So I think that's all I have on finance and everything. PC, anything?
We had a brief meeting on Tuesday and just discussed other matters, which were educational items such as the zoning hearing board process, and we went over a report that the Center Regional Planning Agency put out about the regional growth boundary and sewer service area.
Okay, thank you. One alibi on Eric's report on the public meetings on the State College Connector. Thank you, staff, for already pushing that out once. Could we ask that we push it out one more time when a little closer to the dates? Just to remind everybody. Thank you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion
Hey,
report.
could I go back to your
Please,
Mark?
please.
I checked the agenda. The bids were awarded in the sense that the authority took action to accept them. And in my world, that's awarding the bids. Still, there's contracts to be signed and paperwork. But I read, when the authority takes the action to accept the bids, they award them. So that's already happened. Something could fall through with the paperwork, but
Okay, great, thank you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion reports. Again, we invite the public for this item, should they have anything. Any members of council?
Yeah, I just had one item. There are a lot of requests to pass resolutions, and I'm just looking for feedback. This is really just small discussion. A lot of requests to pass resolutions, which I personally agree with, to recognize, for instance, this being Hispanic Heritage Month, things like that. I'm wondering if there's, we didn't pass a resolution for this month, but we've passed resolutions to recognize other diversity
Asian
months.
Pacifics.
So I don't have a resolution before us today for that, but I was wondering if there was something where when we pass a resolution for these, we could work into that resolution a commitment to recognize it each year, as opposed to passing a new resolution every year, recognizing the resolution on that date that we've passed before. And I'm wondering if that's a way to
Rolling.
to be able to recognize them yearly and not miss them, just sort of have them on the calendar, because I do think it's important that, you know, that we do our fair share to recognize our different constituents and the populations that we represent as College Township. So think about that. I'm just looking for feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
If you support the idea of resolutions, just put it in the calendar, and it comes up every first October council meeting. If council chooses not, future councils choose not to, that's their business, but at least the opportunity doesn't get missed, is what you're
Right,
saying.
as far
right?
as like presenting a resolution to like
Sure.
it's a lower hanging bar to recognize the resolutions that we've passed in previous years. I don't know, I'm kind of making this up off the cuff.
Yeah, I
but-
think the two of you are saying slightly different things, but I think there's a way, Carla, to do what you're talking about, is kind of have almost a perpetual recognition and then kind of a minor recognition each and every year of that we have a standing resolution.
Yeah, right.
Right,
And
it's
then,
just.
as
it's-
opposed to yours, which is we just embed it and we bring those forward at the appropriate times.
Well, it comes up every October in your discussion with the chair on, we're putting the agenda together for October. Here it is. This
Right.
is what we did last year. Right now, we don't even know that it happened until somebody else, sometimes till somebody else passes a resolution.
Well, yeah, right, yeah, and I think we can work, I think that we can work that out, and we can have further discussion.
Right, I was gonna say, let's let staff chew on that. and
Yeah,
then-
just wanted to-
And then come back.
Yeah, offer that up.
Great.
Thank you.
The only other one I would throw out, as we discussed at the general forum, the Community Unity is trying to do the lunch and learns, and they pushed out a doodle poll, so just a reminder to council to follow up with that. Okay, any
You were
other
the first ones to respond.
reports? Okay, very good. So this evening's consent agenda is rather lengthy. I am not going to waste the audience and/or council's valuable time going through all of these items. I would ask, we will potentially approve these by reference to the written list. Before we do that, are there any items which council wish pulled for further discussion?
Rich, I have a couple.
Okay, please. Which,
CA3F
F
and I.
and I? Okay. Carl-Annie? Dustin?
He said CA3G.
G? Okay. Paul, any? Any other that haven't been identified yet?
No, Dustin got the one I wanted to ask about, thank you.
Okay. I would like E. And then also just to acknowledge longtime IDA member Sarah Parks tendered her resignation, and I trust staff will take the appropriate action to recognize her long service to the township.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Eric, go ahead, you let off, go ahead with the ones that you,
Well, I said F, yeah. Yeah, we kind of got an update on this at the last meeting, and we thought maybe there was going to be discussion. That didn't result in
There was a discussion, I ended up speaking with Geisinger's CEO of the Western Region, and The indication was the reason the project, while there were some technical issues with respect to they finishing off this particular plan. They weren't unresolvable, but the issue really was for Geisinger. They have so many projects that are currently so far out of whack relative to budget or delays that they didn't feel that they were going to be able to get to this. I reminded Mr. Thomas that our land development approvals after they're recorded are good for 5 years. And if he was this close or that close to getting one done, perhaps it would be worthy of their consideration to finish that off, get it recorded, and let the 5-year clock run. And he said that he would go back and have that conversation with his people, and I've not heard anything back. That was probably 2 weeks ago now.
Well, this letter seems to indicate they have decided.
Well, the reason I made that call
Was that letter?
was this letter.
Oh, okay.
So
September
do
20.
we not want to accept that?
No, I think at this point, you're accepting it as correspondence.
Correspondence, I got
They
you.
still technically have time before the time clock runs out, which is an MPC issue, which I know that they're making a request to withdraw, that's fine, but in my book, I think we would go by the MPC time
Well, they'd have to
clock.
keep filing for extension.
And they would have to file for the extension.
So the issue was not site-related, it was plan-related. So it's nothing we need to be aware of in regards to the site.
Oh, no, nothing that way. They had some negotiations with respect to a couple of stormwater easements that they needed to get, but not basin easements, and so they were able to, while they had not finalized that, and that had slowed down the recording of the plan, because they weren't finalized, that wasn't, I was not given the indication that they were unresolvable issues.
Okay, and then on that, it's a good segue to the Shannon Tire. Anything we need to be aware of? Is it just formalities?
There were complications with respect to some of the legal aspects involving the easements,
Covenants and restrictions.
covenant, the ECR agreement, yeah, easements, covenants, and restrictions. But those have now been worked through, there is a path forward, and I expect that to be recorded shortly.
Okay. So we don't anticipate seeing a letter from them?
No, we do not.
recognizing one?
Okay. Carly, you didn't have one,
He had another one, didn't he?
two,
I just had
F and I. Yep.
And E, there's E too.
Yeah, I pulled the
G.
G.
G, yeah, so G was with from PADEP for the regarding abandoned oil and gas wells. So I just wanted to bring up the question and whether we know of any in the township at this point.
Yeah.
If anyone knows of any that are designated at all.
There certainly are
oil,
none in the
gas.
township, and I'm not even sure, Dawn, we have a few in the county, but,
Yeah, you get up in the coal regions, there's gas and oil up there.
You say gas and oil. I do know a little bit, I was on the committee for a while on that. There's about 65 in the county, but they're all north of Interstate 80. I don't know if you heard me, there's about 65 wells roughly in Center County, but they are all north of Interstate 80.
Okay.
And most of them, I think 58 are on state land.
Well, thanks to the agenda item, I know what they look like now.
Good trip on one.
That's it.
Good, okay. So,
I think Paul, did
yeah,
you?
he wanted that as well. Paul, is that good?
Yeah, that was my question too. And then also wondering if we could just maybe post something on the website in case there may be some that we're not aware of. Just because, again, the pictures and things kind of highlighted what they were. I don't even know whether it's worth doing, but might be worth just making the public aware.
Okay,
Those might look.
great. Adam's indicating staff will put that into action.
Thank you.
E, if I recall, this isn't the first time we've seen something from the homeowners association.
staff has met with the homeowners association. This is the first communication between the association and council,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah, that, yeah. So could staff give us a,
Yeah, this is the Village at Canterbury. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, Village of Canterbury Homeowners Association had met about a month ago, I believe,
No longer than that, I think.
in July, with multiple members of staff. Amy was involved, Don was involved, Jerry Northridge was involved, Mark was involved. I don't know if you were there, Lindsay, or not. And to answer a series of questions, a variety of things, some of which had to do with their street maintenance, winter maintenance, those types of things, some having to do with stormwater concerns or issues, some conversation about what ifs relative to potential sinkholes that might or could or may at some point develop or evolve in that area of responsibility of the homeowners association. Based on staff reports that I received, I believe that staff had answered those questions satisfactorily and had been able to provide the HOA with the answers that they needed. Apparently, they would like to ask those questions again involving members of council. I did not meet with them. My recommendation to council would be that myself and one or two, at the most, members of council meet with this group to hear their concerns and to see if there's any additional work that we need to do to try to resolve them.
okay? That sounds good. Any members of council want to be considered for that duty?
Are the streets built to township spec?
No.
That would be too easy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I mean, the street that is involved was specifically built as a private road.
Yeah, that's
It
usually
was
the way they
approved
start.
as a private road.
Is that the one behind my office?
No. You know, they're really, it's, to be frank, it's rather cut and dry from a staff perspective and ordinance perspective. But,
Okay,
I mean, I'd be willing to meet with them.
okay, yeah.
You
So,
too?
yeah, sure, one or two, whatever.
Okay.
You decide, you set it up, and I'm sure one of the.
Brief me on it.
One of the other of us we'll make ourselves available.
For sure.
For that, so. Okay, I think we've discussed all that the council had requested to discuss. If so, I would accept the motion to approve the October 6th consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Old business, OB1, Nittany Casino legal opinion. Mr. Brumbaugh.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At both the September 1st and the September 15th regular council meeting, there was a conversation, a discussion with staff relative to making modifications that council had previously requested to the township website, specifically our frequently asked questions, and the timeline that we have up on the dedicated casino page that is on the website. As part of that, at the September 1st meeting, there was a discussion involving a legal opinion that staff had requested of the township solicitor, who's with us tonight, Mr. Lewis Glantz, relative to the possibility of opting out. That, at the time, had been a question that had been raised multiple times in correspondence received at the township for council, making that request. And staff had somewhat preemptively, before council had asked for it, asked the solicitor to weigh in on that. And we did receive a reply, and essentially the solicitor had noted that the township's right to opt out expired 60 days after the effective date of the act. In this case, was approved on July 2nd of 2019. And then he further summarized that the township cannot opt out of gaming under the act and cannot, based on other government delays, rescind the conditional approval of the Macy's gaming site. After having that conversation on September 1st, council then further directed staff to secure an additional opinion from the solicitor with respect to possible ramifications of a hypothetical letter or communication to the Gaming Control Board indicating the township's desire to opt out of accepting a category 4 gaming license in the township. That request was sent out on September 7th, and we had a reply from Mr. Glantz on the 21st, and on the 22nd, council met as previously reported in executive session with the solicitor to have that conversation about the opinion letter as a legal matter. Essentially, the salient points of that opinion talked about potential ramifications of interference, how that would be viewed by a court should a party press that particular matter, and the solicitor has opined that the ramifications of that kind of an interference by the municipality could and likely would result in a civil suit versus the township. He went on further to talk a little bit about whether or not the township would have immunity for any kind of a hypothetical action to deny accepting a gaming license here. And basically his opinion was that the court held there is no immunity if the municipality knew its actions would violate the defendant's due process right. There's also little chance that the township insurance carrier would provide coverage. And so in summary, the solicitor stated it's his opinion that the township should not take any action which could be construed as interference or hampering with the developer's gaming control board approval. So those opinions are part of the packet of information for council. That information has been made public, and essentially council this evening should have a conversation and make some decisions about what actions, if any, they choose to take to move forward. And we do have Mr. Glantz here that is available to assist council in walking through or in clarifying any of the points that he made as part of his opinions.
Great. So one point to make, the original opinion that the solicitor provided was clearly identified as attorney-client privilege and everything. And the one direction from council was that we wanted that released. So then we have the follow-up based on questions that were asked at the executive committee meeting. Council has not had an opportunity to ask the solicitor additional questions on that follow-up September 26th opinion. So at this point, that's where council is going to take up, since we do have the solicitor available to us at this point. So we're going to go around the table again, confirming if there's any other additional information or clarification required from the follow-up opinion, which we also directed be made public on this matter. I think we'll use the same rotation we did I don't remember which meeting, but at any rate, I think, Eric, we started with you, then Dustin, Carla, and then Paul.
The memo is clear. I mean, the way it's formatted, the way it's constructed, it's clear to me what the legal opinion is from our solicitor, so I, at this point, don't have any questions.
Okay. Dustin?
Yeah, just, I want to thank the solicitor, Solicitor Glantz, for, doing all this work and really digging in. I do want to point out, just bring to light that, this wasn't just him sitting at his desk doing an analysis, right? He did some light work and footwork on this. And we asked that, and he told that to us as well in the executive session. One thing that strikes me as something that is difficult is that, if we were to go ahead with a letter, I do believe, and just from my standpoint, that I'm also, not being responsible for everyone in the township, because then we're putting a liability on the township as well. So, I think it stands true that, we have to abide by, what our solicitor is telling us.
Okay. Carl, anything?
It was my understanding, one follow-up question I'd had in the meeting was whether or not we could send a letter letting the Gaming Control Board know that we have received a lot of input from the community since the closing of the public hearing at the state level. And, basic facts, right? So we've received a lot of input. And we do intend to keep an eye on, should it be approved, we do intend to keep an eye on how things are run, make sure that the Gaming Control Board is managing the gaming operations and liquor licenses and et cetera, et cetera. Whether or not that would be sent before approval or after, I think is a wash. It's my understanding that it would probably be more well-received should it be approved, sending such a thing after approval. But I'd be interested in talking about that. So, but my understanding at our executive session was that would not be the same, sending a letter of that sort would not necessarily still put us in that legal conundrum.
I don't think it would be as severe a risk. There's a risk of you doing anything, and I'll tell you why. One of the things the courts have looked at in these decisions is, has the township ever done anything like this before, when a pending approval is, the developer in this case is awaiting approval from a state agency, and you haven't interfered or communicated at all, and now you do, that's sticking your foot in the way of it. What you're talking about, I don't necessarily view it that way, because in effect you could even view that as an acknowledgement they're going to approve it, so we just want to let you know that we're going to help enforce the rules, which I don't think they'll mind. So whether you did it before or after, I don't see that as
Okay.
interference.
Okay. And yeah, just following up on that,
As long as there's it's the expression of opinions
Right.
from the council that are a problem.
right, okay.
By the council. I think I made it clear in one of the letters. Individually, you can do whatever you want. I think it's wiser if you have your spouse or another person do it, but you're only a council when you're here and you vote together. When you're home, you're just like me, but I'm in Potter Township. You're just a resident.
Okay. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. That's okay.
No, there was, I think, didn't a question come up, if three of us did it individually, does that constitute?
Well, that's where it gets gray, because especially if you identify yourself, you wouldn't want to identify yourself as a
Right.
council member, that's the main thing. But if three of you do it and identify yourself, that's clearly, is almost the same as if you did it in this room.
In
It's
this
going to be
room.
perceived that way.
Right.
Sure.
And I think that's unwise. What I'm commenting on is financial exposure to the township, not whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's financial exposure, and the financial exposure is there, and it is great. And what I think I made clear in the letters, but it's federal court action that you have to be worried about, because all these suits that are brought of this type are they can be brought in state court and raise federal issues, but they're always brought in federal court, because the federal courts are much more likely to award attorney's fees under 1983 action, and that's where the huge exposure is, and potentially even triple damages. And not that either side ever always gets that, but it's on the table. And once it goes on the table, the law fees skyrocket. I mean, you're not hiring Center County lawyers. You're hiring an office floor in Manhattan, to be honest with you, or Philadelphia.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Paul?
Thank you. Several of the letters that we received on the consent agenda talk about protection from lawsuits, political subdivision tort claims act, and, sovereign immunity and those kind of things. Could you just please comment on the relevance of any of those to the exposure that we would have legally or financially?
Yeah, I'll comment on it, Paul, and I brought it with me. There's two statutes that apply. There's the general statute and then there's exceptions. They're a total of 2 pages. But what follows those 2 pages is, and I wrote down here, it's like just under 200 pages in the pardons. Brief comments from courts on those 2 pages. The reason I mention that is to say there's 200 pages to trying to interpret those 2 pages. But basically, my conclusion, based on the federal court decisions, is if you knowingly take an action that violates someone's substantive due process or equal protection rights, that the party aggrieved can file a 1983 action in federal court and be entitled to damages, and there is no immunity. If it was an accident, maybe, but the reason there's no immunity is those immunity actions are primarily contractually and not tort-related, although some are specifically, like car accidents. Car accidents you're liable for because that's specifically remunerated. But the courts have gone much further than that. Even in the case of developers, in that one case the Third Circuit case I mentioned, was a development issue where the township went out of its way, not this township, but the township involved went out of its way to defeat a developer from proceeding with an already approved development. And that's really where you are, because this is a development that's already approved, and that township went out of its way, did things they had never done before to try and make it difficult or impossible for the development to proceed. And the court ruled that that did violate their constitutional rights and did make them subject to 1983 action. I don't know what the final result was because the court remanded it to the previous court and there were not any further reports on what happened after that. But that's the difference. Those immunity statutes apply in general, but not in all cases, is the bottom line.
And requesting delay would be the same as requesting denial in your
Yes,
estimate.
and in fact, in the case I was talking about, that's what they were doing. It was delay, it wasn't denial, because they'd already approved it. They were attempting to delay the project long enough that the developer would give up. Oh, I did write down the total. There's 189 pages in that section of the statutes, but only 2 pages are actual statute. The 187 pages are brief summaries of numerous cases, because every page has about 20 cases, attempting to interpret when that applies and when it does not apply. So it's not a blanket catch-all. I gave you a little history on it. I don't know why I paid attention to this part in law school, but it all derives from sovereign being the King of England, where the king was the sovereign, just as Queen Elizabeth was. But then, originally, the king had sovereign power to do just about anything. And therefore, they called it sovereign immunity. And our government, when we took over the United States, inherited most of the British law, and we still follow a lot of it, British common law, and that's where sovereign immunity comes from. But by statute, we have narrowed that immunity, and by court decisions, we've narrowed it even further.
That was all I had for the moment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, very
And
good, thank you. I have nothing to add to the discussion. As Eric indicated, I think it's plain language. I can read through this. The other thing, I think Attorney Glantz, that you shared at the exec meeting is that you'd actually had discussions with some of your peer
Oh,
solicitors.
yeah, I talked to, I think I said there, and I'm gonna say 5 other attorneys, all of which are familiar and active in local government. And they all said the same thing without hesitation: you can't do that, or you better not do that. That ship has sailed. Those are the kind of comments I got.
Okay.
Now, they didn't do the research I did, but they were all familiar with local government, they're all familiar with
Right.
constitutional law.
And the other, I think, provision that was important that came out of our meeting was a discussion on potential insurance coverage and that, and by an intentional act, that would probably.
It could void it. At the very least, the best you would have is that they would defend it, the legal fees, I think, not pay any damages. The worst you could have is they could refuse both, but even if they said we'll cover it, you would be limited to your limits of their policy, which I'm not sure what they are, but I think this claim would exceed those limits. That was part of the legwork, I think you mentioned part of it was that I talked to the lawyers, part of it was I looked into how much has been spent in furtherance of this project, and it's about $20 million right now, 11 million of which was the payment for the license, which I was kind of surprised because I knew they bid $11 million, but I didn't know they paid it before they got it, but they've already paid it. Maybe if they don't get the license, they get it back, but right now they've advanced of the $11 million. And by the way, I know 2 of the parties, I've never represented any of them, and I wouldn't say that I know them socially, I just know them. Well, you all know Bob Poole because he comes here a lot. That's about how I know him. Ira, I know, well, there's 2 Iras, isn't there?
An Ira and an Ara.
Ira, I know from developments he did with the county when I was county solicitor. And the other Ira, I don't know. I know of him, but I wouldn't know him if he walked in.
Sure.
Like, I understand he was a heavyweight wrestler, but that's about the extent of my knowledge.
Okay, so as we have done throughout this, what we know, you all now know. With that said, as we have done, we have provided a forum for all of you to share comments with us. We're going to open the floor to allow that again. I would implore you, for the sake of everyone here, we're very clear on the things that have been presented in multiple fashions and everything. But if you have something new to offer to council on this matter, based on the new information that you've heard or read since the last meeting, we welcome you and encourage you to share those comments with us. As we have done in the previous 2 meetings, what we're going to do, we'll start with College Township residents that are here in the room with us. Then we'll go online for College Township residents and work back through the center region, the county, and anyone else. So with that said, we are going to open the floor. Please, if you would, ma'am, please, if you'd go to the lectern. You're a College Township resident, ma'am?
I am. I live on Nimitz Avenue.
Excellent.
And I have a local business since 1980 in our community, a healing practice. I'm very familiar. I was on the board of the ACLU for about 30 years. So my name's Faye. I'm a licensed massage therapist in this community.
Faye, what's your last name?
Birch,
Birch.
B-U-R-T-C-H.
Thank you.
I've been doing body work and herbalism and healing practice since 1980 in our community. So about 3 weeks ago, there was an article, and it talked about Pennsylvania having more human trafficking than any other state in the U.S., and the state college is 3rd on the list of Pennsylvania, 3rd. More
I
human
think she probably
trafficking
needs to
here.
stay near the mic.
Ma'am,
Just about than anywhere else.
we need you to stay at the lectern
So
for
there's
our
a
viewing
place in
on this.
Lamar that I checked out, It's across from the TA station. It's a blue building with massage spa on it. So I went there. Two Chinese girls don't speak English.
I don't think the mic can pick her up.
Ma'am.
So the trucks get off to get weighed. They go right by the human trafficking place to get laid. Then they go across the street to get their gas and they get back on 80. So I went there and talked to them. I do speak Chinese. The two stalls, two really dirty sheets, really disgusting, no windows, no license. So I called the town police here at State College. They say, oh, that's out of our territory. Call the Lock Haven State Police. This is their number. So I called them. They weren't very nice, but they asked me to come on in their office. So I drove back to Lock Haven, where two skinhead cops came out bald.
Ma'am, you
With their
need
guns.
to utilize the
They
mic,
pushed their
please.
guns like this. They started abusing me, telling me I was jealous that these girls were taking my business away. Started picking on me, called me names. There was a secretary there, a dark-haired female. She joined in. So I left and I came to State College, where the cops had me wait outside their office for about an hour. They were too busy to talk to me. So I went home and I called the state troopers back. I called on the state trooper number, they picked up on a different number, and they said, bitch, if you know what's good for you, you'll drop this. Do you get it? Do you understand what I'm saying? You better drop it. Click. So I called them back on the same number. They picked it up again on a different number and said, and don't you ever call back here again. Do you understand?
Ma'am, is this gonna get to the casino?
So, the casino is also out of the the borough cops' jurisdiction. Casinos are also known to have a lot of human trafficking. Casinos are also known to be run by the mafia. And the mafia's, over 75% of the mafia's business is in human trafficking. It's no longer in numbers, it's in sex. So they're just gonna bring Lamar out over to the casino, closer to State College, maybe get a few college kids while they're at it,
They seem to be beautiful.
and just bring in the human trafficking closer to State College. And then when you call our local town cops, they'll say, oh, it's out of our territory, nothing we can do.
Ma'am, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
I know you really care about it.
Uh,
Oh, and maybe,
Ma'am,
see, you're looking for some people on the council, you might get some people of color that you're representing. Maybe
thank you,
some
ma'am.
Hispanic, maybe some
Any other
color.
College Township residents in the room that wish to speak to council? Sir, thank you.
Stephen Smith, Lamont resident, College Township. I don't think anybody here has forgotten. But back in the early 2000s, I believe 2003, when casinos were approved, it was just slot machines. And, you know, it was only going to be slot machines, harmless slot machines. Not that they're harmless or anything like that, but it was just going to be slot machines. First couple of years, the revenue numbers weren't good. Casinos, gambling industry said we needed table games. What do you know? Table games get approved. Years go by, revenue's still not what we want, so now it's sports books, sports gambling. That's been approved. What's next? This is supposed to be correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm not using the correct terminology, a level 4, category 4 license. Those licenses were approved for slot machines. Table games. Sports book. Is there any guarantee that that won't happen here?
Good question.
Because that's what it was statewide, 2003. Just gonna be slot machines. just gonna be a couple casinos. So that's a question that I think should be raised in terms of due diligence, whether or not this is an expandable issue for this certain class of casino that we're thinking about allowing. One of the things that, we talked, and I'm a resident of Lamont, I know you guys have already discussed it, I don't want to mix metaphors and stories here, but you guys were talking about the gas lines in Lamont. And I guess we really need to ask ourselves, how lucky were we? That nothing horrible happened. There wasn't an explosion, there weren't mass evacuations of Pike Street in Lamont. Is that what we do nowadays? Do we plan for the best and hope the worst doesn't happen? Because it certainly sounds that way with the casino.
Please, folks.
Finally, I know from attending the last couple of council meetings, it's, obviously there is a strong flow of opposition to the casino in College Township, beyond College Township, the center region, and perhaps even the county. I don't presume to speak for anybody other than myself. It was discussed, I don't remember exactly who said it, but whether or not there was ever a survey of residents of College Township, or a poll of residents of College Township. I mean, this was obviously, you guys opted out, or refused to opt out, I don't want to use the wrong terminology, but this was 2019, and then apparently the rights to change that opinion happened 60 days later. I don't know if anybody's ever actually gone out into the community and asked the question, or sent out a postcard and just said, hey, what do you guys think? I have no idea if it's too late for that. I appreciate you guys considering the letter. I appreciate you doing due diligence and looking at the letter. I'm not a lawyer, but whether or not there's a difference between College Township Council as a whole saying, we don't think this is a good idea, and College Township Council writing a letter that says, we have seen a lot of opposition. We're just telling you that. This is information that you should have. I certainly, as a taxpayer, I can appreciate legal exposure, I can appreciate economic exposure, but I would rather stand and fight than bend over and allow the gambling interests to move into the region and flex their muscle, both legislatively and economically. Final point I want to make, I don't want to run, I don't know if I have 5 minutes or up or anything like that. The final point I wanted to make,
It is.
and I don't mean to pick on anyone, because this is a hard job. Democracy is not easy. But at the prior meeting, one of the council members, said he wanted to hear from more people. I can appreciate that. There are a lot of people that are speaking. Whether or not people aren't speaking, I can't help that. And quite frankly, neither can you. You can solicit opinions, you can ask for more people to expound on the issue, you can look for support for gambling. I mean, one of the people online tonight is in favor of gambling. That's fine, that's what we're about. This is a democracy. For me personally, I think it's time.
That would be your 5 minutes.
I think it's time we can express our opinions to the Gaming Control Board. I implore College Township Council not to express a legal opinion or any opposition. Just make them aware that there is plenty of opposition in College Township, in the center region, and perhaps in the county as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Folks, we need to come to an understanding. This is a public meeting, and we appreciate your enthusiasm for some of the comments and stuff. But candidly, if we can't keep control in here, there's not a requirement for us to have this open discussion. We don't want to close it. Please show us the respect and allow the speaker to speak, and then allow council to deliberate at the end of that. If there's further outbreaks, we are going to have to close the public comment, and I don't want to do that. Any other College Township residents here in the room? Ma'am, please.
Okay, so I'm College Township resident.
Say your name, please.
Your name, ma'am?
Sorry, Jaylene, Jaylene Smith also.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm a resident of College Township. And the reason I'm speaking is because I want you all to know that there is an opposition out there, and I'm no expert on casinos, but I've read a lot of research since this has come up, and it's gonna be right in our backyard, and I just was wondering why maybe an impact study wouldn't have helped, or if there was, maybe no time at this point to do one, but I think that that should have been something. I feel like that this casino, all of a sudden, oh, it's coming. It's like, well, wait a minute, what? Like, I don't know, it just feels like it's all of a sudden. And it's disappointing to me that in College Township, the very first meeting I came to about this, the comment was, oh, we haven't had this many people at a meeting since the chickens. And I'm like, my gosh, like, there was so much we had to go through to get chickens, but yet we get this casino, we don't even want this casino, but we're getting this casino, and it's like, oh, it's just like that. It's like a done deal. It's so strange to me that that can happen. I mean, like, people I tell who aren't from here, like, what do you mean you're getting a casino? You couldn't even have chickens. And I'm like, I know, it makes no sense. So I would just like our elected officials to be looking out for the well-being of the people. And I feel like a lot of the talk tonight has been about, litigious, like, well, what are we exposing ourselves to if we write this letter? Like, what about what we're exposing everyone in the college, in College Township, in the whole region? What are we exposing all of us to if this goes through and there's negative impacts? Like, I'm no expert, I'm not making this stuff up. Like, if you just go to do the research, Andrew Schaefer, I didn't even know who he was, and I, found his website, the Say No to the Casino, and there's like so many studies out there that people have done. Like, there's research out there, there's really intelligent people who have studied this. Like, this isn't just me and a bunch of people sitting here saying, no, we don't want this. It's like, it's documented, it's been researched. So I would just like the board to do all you can do to help the people that, are in this community. It's not just College Township, it's the whole center region that's gonna be affected by this. We're not like a bubble. We all need to be a community and work together. And if you could write a letter just saying, yeah, there's people that oppose this. There's a lot of us that oppose this. Not that you're, opening yourself up, but just to let them know. I mean, I guess, just represent the interests of everyone here that is saying, and we've come to several meetings now, saying that, this is not something that we think is going to be good for our community. And we're worried about the Penn State students, and we're worried about the people who live here, who are going to have to deal with all the ramifications of this casino. So it's not that, we're anti-business or something. There's reasons behind it. So, and I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any other College Township residents? And that's fine. I saw that. That's fine. Any other College Township residents in the room? Okay. At this point, we'll go to College Township residents online. Please raise your digital hand, and we'll recognize you one by one.
Carol.
I can't read
Carol
it.
Camargo.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm from College Township, Carol Camargo, and I'm very opposed to the casino, and I think this is something worth fighting for, and I think others here believe it's worth fighting for as well. Even if that means we put ourselves at some risk, it's worth fighting for to protect our town, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other College Township residents online? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Alicia?
Ms. Hughes.
My name is Alicia Hughes, and I'm a resident of College Township. I agree with Carol Camargo. I think it's worth the cost for us to proceed. I mean, I just don't understand why it got this far. And you said that this was signed into in 2019, but I don't recall ever hearing about this casino or a proposal of a casino in 2019. And I do read the paper and I do watch the news. I don't know how it got away that far. But when they said that the insurance would not cover for us to fight it, so what are they saying the cost would be to College Township if they decide to sue us?
That would be up to the suer, but the reality is that they would probably be looking for how much money they have into it at this point, which, per the solicitor, was over $20 million.
And if we had to pay it back, where would it come from?
We have no idea. That's a topic. So, what's the gentleman's name?
David Hatfield.
Mr. Hatfield.
Hi, sorry about that. I was having a hard time with the unmute button. Yes, I agree with, I've heard multiple things about the financial devastation casino can cause. I have so I don't need to reiterate that, but I'm deeply opposed to it. I live on Jay Lane, probably a mile or less away from the Nittany Mall. So I have personal reasons to oppose it. I have 2 teenage kids, that one recently began driving, another one will soon, and I just know that casinos bring in a ton of alcohol, and there'll be probably inebriated driving. That's another thing that may not be discussed. My own dad almost lost his life to a gambling addiction. And so again, to reiterate, the effect this could have on community members, college students, all the above, it's just the human misery, financial misery, and just potential loss. I understand you're in a difficult position at this point, but I have to urge you to just please listen to your constituents and go with the good of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other College Township residents online wishing to speak?
Marie Hamilton is raising her.
Ms. Hamilton? You need to unmute, ma'am.
My name is Marie Hamilton. I live in College Township in Hauserville. I've lived here since 1971. I have dedicated my life to working with people with addictions and getting into prisons. I'm the founder of Centerpiece. I have set up many restorative justice programs. I spent 45 years going in at least, an average of twice a week for 45 years into our prisons, all of the state prisons, many county jails. And I am very, very aware of the addictions that bring people to prison, and many of them are because of gambling. And I've seen the devastation of the families because of this. I know that for some people, it'd be like, oh wow, we're going to bring money in, we're going to have jobs. I want to be entertained, and I don't care about those people. I think we need to rethink. If that's what we're saying, we don't care. I have 2 questions. The letters that you have written and the responses that you have gotten, may we see those on a website?
They're all on the website.
Ma'am, one of the things that we've absolutely been steadfast in is everything that we have, our residents have.
The response also, that last response, is that on?
With regard to the solicitor's opinion that we just
Yes,
discussed earlier?
yes.
It absolutely will be.
It's part of the packet, that's
It's-
online, and
right.
it'll go onto the
Right,
website.
it will go on,
It
yeah,
will be.
yeah, absolutely, without question.
All right. Okay. You are scaring us with that big fine. But the fine is because, is if you say, we have changed our mind about the casino. Have you talked to the state legislatures, the Attorney General, and the Governor's office to verify the legal authority of the gaming board to be suing us?
We're not concerned with the gaming board suing us, ma'am. It would be the developer that has applied for a license with the gaming commission that the opinion was rendered on.
Okay, so we aren't worried about the gaming board anymore?
We, as one of a common thread throughout this, is we have no control or power over the gaming commission board, so. Ma'am, we're at the 5-minute mark. I want to save time for some other folks. We're going to move to Ms. Bocchimini, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Bocchimini. I live in College Township. So I'm just here again to advocate for the letter and what I was just looking to see if there's calculations that can be done about the 20 million. It sounds like a lot of money, but that's, when I think about a township that, I mean, like roads cost a lot of money, construction costs a lot of money, like way more money than we would ever anticipate. And I was just curious about the cost of having the casino as well in terms of the social impact. So on the one hand, if you're trying to avoid getting sued, I have a couple questions. Is that really our choice as the residents here, or is it your choice? Because we're probably going to end up paying that as taxpayers. That's one question. The other question is the cost. I did just something quick. I had another document I couldn't find, but this is just an article from Baylor that compiled a bunch of different studies on the gambling culture. The paper is titled The Hidden Social Costs of Gambling by Earl L. Grinols, Grinols. It's from 2011, so it's a little outdated, and I'm sure the costs are more now. But just considering the other costs of gambling, if that would be more or more of a drain or expense on the town than the 20 million that we risked, which is because we're stuck in this because of however this got passed through initially under the radar. Business and employment costs, for example, lost productivity on the job, lost work time. This is for gambling addiction, not to mention other crimes and such. Unemployment-related costs, bankruptcy, imposed costs on society in the form of legal and other resources expended, suicide that imposes costs on the families and the wider society, as the ending of the life of a despondent gambler, illness related to pathological gambling, stress-related sickness, cardiovascular anxiety, depression, cognitive disorders, the social service costs like unemployment, treatment costs, social services and payments related to gambling, regulatory costs to government oversight of the gambling industry, family costs, divorce, separation, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence related to that, abused dollars, obtained improperly, maybe not as a reported crime, but maybe stolen by a relative or friend. And this doesn't even include, just the cost of police. It does include crime costs, police apprehension, adjudication, incarceration, and such. It doesn't include, forgery, fraud, all of that. And so based on that, there was an average of multiple studies. They have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here combined show that it would cost annually per pathological gambler $9,393 for those are the social costs. This is again outdated, April 2011. And there's a bunch of other figures they use from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and whatnot. So that would be, divided by $20 million. I guess that would be like 2,000 people, 2,129. That seems kind of small. I mean, it kind of sounds big, but also seems kind of small when you think about that social cost, which is probably more now, being so many years later, 11 years later. So it's just something to consider with the calculations of how much the town might get sued by the developer compared to those social costs to the town overall. Maybe it's offset by money from the gambling, but we don't want those social costs, and we don't want the casino in the first place, so that's something to consider. And again, going back to who's deciding this is our decision, because I think most of us don't want it here and are willing to put up with the fight and incur those costs, because I think they will be less than the long-term costs of the social impact. If it ends up going to the place where we don't want it to go, but it's the least that you can do is still writing the letters others have suggested, just sharing straight up observations and facts that there's opposition. This is how much we've noticed. This is the number of people here. They should have plenty of that fact from all the petitions and letters have been sent. I'll finish up now.
Okay, thank you.
But that, whatever legal counsel that you can use to make as strong an argument as possible with the language that can still protect the town, that's what I would advise. Because, there are artists at how they devise those letters to one little change of a word can mean all the difference in terms of making an argument that can still protect the town here. So that's my question and my thoughts. Thank you for your time and consideration, and please take this very seriously.
Thank you.
It's Carlin Geiger.
Yes.
My name is Carlin Geiger. I live here in College Township, less than a mile from the Nittany Mall. And similar to the other concerns, I just really am very concerned. I have 2 teenagers and 1 Penn State student, very concerned about the impacts. I'm sure you've heard all of this before, but just appreciate you listening. And I really agree with all of that social impact and the costs that it would incur, and just really concerned about our community. People love and want to move to State College. And I'm afraid that's really going to change with this, and that we're going to have less people moving to the area, less people who want to live here, and I feel like that's a pretty big impact as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, last call for College Township Online. Center Region on, is that a College Township?
She's going online now. She was at College Township President.
Okay.
My name is Susie Straight. I live in College Township. I just want to express my disappointment that there wasn't information. I never heard anything in 2019. And I feel now that what's happened is the vote has been cast, and then we're told, well, I'm sorry, our hands are tied because we've already voted this yes. And it's just really disappointing to me that my voice was not allowed to be expressed. I also, to put the $20 million in perspective, we were talking earlier about 6,000 to 10,000 for a footpath in Millbrook Marsh. So relatively small things can be very, very expensive. But I think when we consider the social costs of a casino in Happy Valley, it puts that 20 million, which is a very great amount of money, but it puts it in perspective.
Very good, thank you, ma'am. Folks on.
Kurt Keller.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirk Heller. I'm part of College Township, just on the edge of the borough. And there isn't much more that I can add that hasn't already been said. I wanted to just voice that I am in agreement with going against the casino here. And I appreciate the time that you all have put together here in allowing us to speak, to hear us speak and have our opinions heard. I greatly respect that and I appreciate that. And would encourage the forward movement here with continuing to fight against this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
The other person who says Cassine, Michelle Rodino.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
she changed it.
Okay. Ms. Rodino?
Hi. Hi, I'm actually a Center County resident. I live in the borough, so am I allowed?
Okay.
I'm against the casino, but I don't know if I'm allowed to weigh in as someone who drives in and out and tries to go to the mall to buy something when possible, just because there's not a lot there. Can I say stuff now?
Oh, yeah, you said you were the borough? Yeah, we've moved.
Yes,
we just moved.
I'm in the borough. Do you need my street address?
No, just your name and your municipality. And
Okay.
We just opened it up to the center region folks.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, that's why I did that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, I'm so concerned for so many reasons. I'm a mother of a teen who will be driving soon. I'm also the daughter of two elderly parents who I'm lucky enough that they live here in the area. But, I know that I'm concerned about one of them possibly going to the mall and going to the casino and losing their Social Security check. I'm also concerned that we're going to attract sex traffickers into the area. That is really, I also teach at Penn State, and I'm worried about my students both being victim to sex trafficking, of course, our kids here in State College, the younger kids. Oh my gosh, I'm worried about all the things that people before me have said and documented, and good job. The $20 million, we can raise that money. Look at all the people that are turning out to oppose this casino. I think we could crowd fund keeping them away. I think you'd be surprised, and I think you can. At this point, it becomes a budgeting issue. How do you budget? If we want to keep this casino away, how do we budget for that? Do we take out a bond? Issue a bond? What do you do? I think that becomes the thinking, and it's logistics. But I think if you were to take a poll, like some people have suggested, you would find that residents do not want this casino. It will cost us. The other thing is if you're thinking about costs, all the things that we're raising, all these problems will be very costly to fix. And then who would want to live near the casino or even go near it when it's open? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Jen.
Andrew McKinnon.
Mr. McKinnon.
Hi, my name is Andrew McKinnon. I live in Ferguson Township, and my family and I have lived here for 34 years. So I have a statement I would like to read. They say a man or woman is known by his or her fruits. The same can be said of a town. Has it made something it can be proud of? Is it nice to look at? Is it a welcoming place to live? After all, a town is one's home, and what people do with their home is a reflection of what they think about, what they value, and how they would like to live. Some towns are beautiful because the people care about their home. They create harmonious green spaces that complement the natural environment around them. They value the connection to nature by putting in walking paths, trails, and parks that offer peace, immersion in natural settings, and the opportunity for reflection. They prioritize public transit to limit the built environment of roads, concrete, cars, and the noise and overstimulation that comes with it. They want their town to be beautiful, peaceful, and safe. They know they are only as strong and healthy as their weakest and most vulnerable, so they care about everyone, making sure there are homes that even the lowest of wage earners can afford to live in. They draw on the knowledge, passions, and pride of their own ranks. encouraging the townspeople, not outside speculators and faraway corporations, to provide services and supplies that are needed in the town. They want their town to be a refuge, a place of equality where everyone chips in, where everyone has a chance to succeed and build a meaningful life. Other towns are the opposite. They aren't particularly attractive places to live or to visit. They are often surrounded by great natural beauty, mountains, lakes, rivers, and forests, but are themselves an unharmonious intrusion on the landscape. One wonders if they have much of a connection to the nature that is all around them. Over the years, they fill up with strip malls and housing developments, cars and highways, apartment projects that ruin the land and offend the eye, sprawling sports complexes that also ruin the view, destroy habitat, and create lots of noise and light pollution for miles around. Visitors must question why the residents of such towns treat their collective home with such disregard, why they spoil it instead of cherishing it. Just as they show contempt for nature, they appear to neglect many of their own members as their town becomes littered with luxury housing instead of affordable homes. They appear to care more about enriching prominent members or institutions within the town rather than raising the quality of life for everyone. Their values and goals for the town are dubious. Instead of valuing beauty, a healthy community, and a strong connection to the land, they award contracts to outsiders in order to sell out the quality of their lives and their town to the highest bidder. I cannot think of anything that more clearly sells out and spoils a town or is more symbolic of such than a casino. If this is a reflection of our values, the fruit by which we are known, I question who we are, who we want to be, and what we want our lives to be about. Polls have consistently shown that 80% or more of residents oppose the casino, so I am confident that most people in our town really do have their values in the right place. I am not as reassured by those very few who may be clamoring for the casino's development. Mostly, I am saddened and dismayed that these are the voices that those in power, the decision makers and wielders of influence, are listening to the most. If the casino is built, then 10 years from now, when quality of life measures such as aesthetics, environmental and public health, community engagement, and rates of addiction have considerably worsened, visitors will wonder what happened. Why we let it all go, painting us all with the same brush of disapproval, never knowing that most of us cared, and as always, it was only those in charge who failed to protect and nurture the town we used to have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Dorothy Blair?
Ms. Blair?
She's muted.
You're muted, Ms. Blair.
Yes, I turned that off.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me speak, I guess, once again. My name is Dorothy Blair, and I reside in Harris Township. There are important reasons why so many good citizens in Happy Valley are fighting against a casino only 2 miles from 48,000 vulnerable students, not to mention their own children and elderly relatives. We fear and anticipate the known effects of casinos on business, the elderly, the young, and the troubled. And I have to say that I think Andy made some excellent points. Thank you, Andy. First, casinos don't revitalize areas, they bring them down. This is a proven fact. Property values near casinos decline, and nearby retail stores lose money. I don't know, have you consulted the local businesses around the casino? Second, casinos prey on vulnerable and gullible people. Those people who provide most of the casino revenue are the young, the old, and the poor. I paraphrase a 2015 Atlantic magazine article. Casinos offer a hypnotic zone of rapid-fire electronic stimuli. Between 40 and 60% of casino revenues are earned from problem gamblers, just the ones we would like to protect. We who live in Happy Valley do not want to undermine the well-being of vulnerable people in exchange for a small reduction in our real estate taxes. Actually, it doesn't even provide taxes for the poor. It's only for people who own land. To me, this tax decrease feels like blood money. And I really feel that we can do without this casino, and I'm very interested in learning more about how we could possibly raise that $20 million to maybe at a casino, who knows? Okay, thank you very much for letting me talk.
Thank you, Ms. Blair.
Horatio Blanco, Perez Blanco.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my views. I was just reading the College Township budgets, and you mentioned that over the meeting, but we are talking $10 million. $20 million compared to one yearly budget is not that much. I live in State College, but I own a couple of properties to work with other investors in College Township, and I am aware of the taxes that we pay. $10 million, $20 million is not an insignificant amount, but it is something that we can afford. And I tend to agree with those who went before me, who indicated that they rather have expenditure and the fight than roll over and just die. I think at the very least we should write a letter indicating that there is considerable opposition, which wasn't all that manifest at the time of approval. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Was he from State College Borough?
Yes, he indicated he was, yes.
With property in College Township.
With investment property.
Janet Nelson.
Ms. Nelson?
Hi, my name is Janet Nelson, and I do live in College Township. I live very close to the Nittany Mall. I can actually walk there. Thank you for all the people that so eloquently spoke about the different studies and the impacts of gambling on a community. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I saw this. I saw this happen. And I know it's going to happen. I know that property values are going to decline. I know that people are going to be getting more involved with crime. I know there's going to be an increase in accidents, alcohol consumption, sex trafficking. I know it's going to happen because I've seen it. So, I really think this is worth a fight. This is a beautiful community. I left Philadelphia 30 years ago to move to Happy Valley. I had no idea how nice this community was. I didn't even know communities like this existed. And I can see, if we don't do something now, where we're headed. I watched growing up and living in a very poor neighborhood where Rocky used to run through. Philadelphia just mushrooming into Bucks County. And people moving further and further away from the casinos and the gambling and the drinking and the sex trafficking. They just wanted to get out. So I just don't understand why this hasn't been studied further. I mean, I might sound reactionary, but I've seen it happening. There's a racetrack in Northeast Philadelphia. And when I moved from closer inner city to Northeast Philadelphia, Northeast was beautiful, all farms, all nice new developments. That racetrack moved in, that casino. And after that, those home values plummeted. And, people were going into jail, drugs left and right. Kids like my nieces that grew up in Chamonix, that was supposed to be the best school district in Philadelphia. Not anymore. And it's all because of that casino that went in Northeast Philadelphia. So, I really think you need to think long and hard about the impacts of this and what it's going to do to College Township 20 years down the road, because it's not pretty. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Joanna Santamaria.
Ms. Santa Maria?
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to say I am from Connecticut, the land of Oz. We have 2 casinos in Connecticut. They rise majestically from the green southeastern hills. It looks surreal when you're driving through. But remember what they say about Oz. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. We have Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. They were termed as creative sources of revenue. Each of them have many stories. stories of hope, lots of false hope. I know by my job, I was school psychologist, children, our students were left in cars all night while parents gambled, hoping for that win. They were stuck with no positive socialization, no academic stimulation, resultant gaps in learning. Many had no friends. There were tales of loss, of home, of hearth, their cars, family savings, divorce. Some of our students had to move to other towns. They had to leave their home, their neighbors. They had to change schools, total readjustment. And teachers had to pay the price when such students acted out in class. And they do that. And other students pay the price when the acting out students disrupt their education. And that does happen. My husband and I attended a wedding, and we happened to be seated with a blackjack dealer. And he said he could count on less than one hand actual winners. The slot machines were defined as piggy banks for the casinos. So let's not pay attention to the man behind the curtain, at least not now. But let's pay attention to what's right in front of us. Casinos are more destructive than creative. Their cost is much more than their worth. And an addendum tonight, outside of a Las Vegas casino, 2 people were killed, 6 stabbed. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I mean, she's already gone.
Yeah, Ms. McMeany, we're gonna keep going with people that haven't spoke yet. If we have time, we'll come back to you.
No, there's no more hands.
Okay, very good. In the room, Center Region residents, please, to the lectern.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Schaefer. I live in State College Borough. There's 2 things that I'd like to discuss tonight. The first is I'd like to remind the council that although you've heard from a lot of people tonight, there's far more people who oppose this casino than are represented here. If you do a statistical extrapolation, that will be obvious. But to make it more concrete, this is the petition that we collected earlier in the year. A few dozen people went out into the community over a period of about 2 months. Most of the work was done by 4 families. A number of people collected a few families went out day after day for months. And this is not padded. This is double-sided print, small font. It represents 3,300 distinct people who submitted signatures opposing this casino before the June 12th deadline. This was submitted to the Gaming Control Board. There's an online petition as well as the hard copy petition. The online petition has remained online, although it's marked closed. People have continued to sign that since June 12th, and we're even signing it today because they want to express their opposition to this casino. We were primarily limited in the number of people we could reach by the small number of people who had the time to go door to door, day after day, trying to reach our neighbors when many of them are not home. And it's challenging for people to go out and do that, but we managed to reach 3% of the people in this Center County region. 90% of the people we reached signed the petition. In College Township itself, 5% of the township population has signed this petition, not including those who are counted since June 12th. So you're disproportionately represented. We did a fairly uniform collection of signatures across the region. There are more people in College Township per capita who oppose this than in the rest of the region. Those are your constituents, and they're my neighbors. So I will leave this here with you. When you can look at it, you can see that it's real. It has everybody's signatures. It has their contact info if you want to follow up on it. I know there were questions about that at the last meeting. And I understand the difficulty that you face deciding right now how to represent your constituents, whether it's better to send a letter and greatly increase the odds that the casino is not built, but also increase the likelihood of a lawsuit that may be as much as 20 million, or whether it's better to not say anything and hope that the casino is defeated through other means, in which case the township may get off scot-free, or it may end up with the casino here. From the research I've done, I am certain that the casino will cost more if it's built here than any legal fee that we might have to pay. That's assuming the lawsuit goes forward, that we lose, and the casino developers get the maximum damages that will be plausible, the casino will still cost more. You need to find the wisdom to know how to represent your constituents. I encourage you to send a letter. The sentiment that's expressed here tonight is strongly in favor of fighting. I would rather go down fighting than roll over. If that's not possible, then I question where we've come as Americans, that our represented officials, our elected representatives, cannot represent their constituents and instead are forced to take the position of an outside developer who wants to exploit them. How have we come to this point? And if we truly are at that point, should we not pause and question whether this is the time where we need to draw a line in the sand and fight before it gets worse? Because if the casino developers do come in here, and they get their tentacles farther through this community, they will use that leverage to exploit this community. If you look on Bally's corporate website, the CEO put on his own corporate website, published an article called Mr. Vice Man, or Mr. Vice Guy, excuse me, celebrating how he has built an empire of hundreds of millions of dollars selling cannabis and casinos. And in that article, one of his business partners from the past, who refused to be named for fear of retribution, says that Bally's modus operandi is to find points of leverage and shake people down. If we let them into our community, what do you think they're going to do? That's what they're bragging about doing on their own media publications. Yes, of course they're going to come after us, and things will get much, much worse than what we're facing right now. So I do live in State College Borough. I can't speak for the residents in this township. I've seen their feedback, I've heard them speaking. What I perceive is that they want to fight. I'm willing to stand with them. If you find you are not able to do that, please at least send the feedback that you have compiled on the College Township website in its entirety, with what opposes the casino and what supports it, to the Gaming Control Board. It's relevant information for their decision. You ask us to give you information about decisions that are relevant to the township. The Gaming Control Board, if it's a responsible governing entity, also should want information that is relevant to its decisions. And you will be helping them by providing that information. If you can't represent us, please at least let us represent ourselves by sending our feedback to the Gaming Control Board so that they can evaluate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I correct that that's already on the website?
It is.
It's on the website. This is the full version.
Sure. Center Region resident in the room. Please, I see 2 hands, 3 hands. I saw your hand first, but please just make your way over there and we'll certainly have time to listen.
Thank you. Randolph Hudson, Ferguson Township, lifelong Center Region resident. Good news, you still have options. Please hire outside counsel. The legal issues surrounding the casino approval demand additional guidance. This is a job for a specialist law firm. While the township solicitor attends to routine legal matters, we ask the township to retain an attorney who is expert in municipal government liability and strategy, specifically with respect to correcting course when errors and/or omissions in an approval process may inflict severe costs to pocketbooks and reputation. The good news is there's a lot of precedent and legal expertise available, and we ask that you please take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, yeah, please, ma'am.
My name is Sue Jackson. I'm in Ferguson Township, a 30-year resident. We heard the words from the solicitor that any attempt to, I think he said, to negatively influence or to try to, what was the word? Interfere with the decision could bring these legal liabilities. And you've heard from so many people that they'd rather take the legal liabilities, and I agree with that. But I wonder why there's no nuance here. In all the other discussions about sidewalks, about ordinance variance and everything, I've heard so much nuance in this group. But in this matter, there's no nuance. It's, well, if we say anything, we are interfering. Some of the other people have spoken well that it's providing information. And what I would say is if you said this small group of council members did not opt out and none of the community knew this was even on the table, and now years later they're finding it out, and we have found there is overwhelming opposition, we think you should know. I assume that the Gaming Commission only wants to give these prized permits where they're going to succeed. I would think they would want to know it's not likely to succeed here. If this plan goes forward, all these people will be hoping and probably praying that it fails. I would think this could be in the category of information that we didn't have when we didn't opt out, rather than trying to interfere. I would think they would want to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Did I see one, or,
There's in the front row, she's been raising her hand.
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, you go first. I saw two more back there, please. I will advise that we're gonna wrap this up at 9:30. Public comment at 9:30.
My name's Lisa Pula, and I live in Ferguson Township. I'm a new resident. I'm surprised that there was no decision to opt out and no evaluations done to the community back in 2019. I don't know if the commission members are the same commission members that made the decisions back then, and if this is a new commission board. But after the fact, most of this is just venting, as far as I can tell. I just wanted to give a couple thoughts here. How you make money matters. Money debasement and political debasement causes political and community decay. Conniving into a doom loop narrows not only the political system, but the economic system. Debasing the currency, which is what inflation really is, destroys the community when the only focus is on money, regardless of how you get it, how you make it, and what you really wind up doing with it on all levels of interactions and transactions. It really matters. Real people melt away, not just the money. Shattered reputations are not just gaming takeaways and not just a bad game. Bad money made in bad ways shatters the real people in the real community. How you really make money really matters.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir. And I think I identified one other person back there. Please, sir.
I'll be very brief. My name is Paul Schaefer. I'm a resident of State College Borough. Time is short. What are you going to do?
Thank you, sir. Like I said, I think I saw one other person, and then we're going to conclude, come back to council.
Todd or North Belfont Borough. I think it's important that I probably say something here because I've been in the business for 10 years as a dealer and as a supervisor. And I think a lot of people, you know, you talk about addictions, which we're not numb to. We understand that stuff does happen. There is a lot of extensive training that we go through for that. Because a lot of people think that if you go, that if you play, we don't care about you, and that's absolutely not the case at all. As a supervisor, I've had to pull guests aside myself and have a really uncomfortable conversation with it, because it is about their livelihood and with their mannerisms, speaking to themselves. There's a whole lot of training that we go through. And there's pamphlets that we give people. There's a slew of training that casino dealers and us supervisors have to go through to be on that floor. And I don't know if anybody else here is pro, but I feel like those words are pretty important, so to be told. And also, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can be 18 years old and be a dealer. And if you're 18 years old, you don't always have the funds for college. You don't always have the funds for trade school, and or just know what you want to do in life yet. I've worked at 4 different casinos, 3 in Pennsylvania and 1 in Baltimore, Maryland. And at every place I've ever been, entry-level dealers have never made less than 50 grand. If I was 18 years old and it could have gone back, like, that would have helped me personally tremendously, you know. And one other thing about the crime, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I always hear about the crime. Well, I broke into the business at the Hollywood out in Grantville, Pennsylvania, right beside Harrisburg, and it's just in the middle of a cornfield, and there's absolutely squat. I go from there, take promotion down in Baltimore. I think Baltimore in 2020, the population was 585,000 or something like that. And it's a city with a very bad reputation. Everybody knows that. It's in the news every single day. Did I experience some crime there? Absolutely, I did. But that's also the lifestyle there. This is State College, and that's not exactly the lifestyle here. In a cornfield, right by I-81, there was no crime there. And was there some people with too much alcohol? Sure, of course, but at the local Quaker State, that could happen too. And one more thing, is back on addictions. You can work in a casino at the age of 18. You can't gamble until you're 21. But, you know, if you go to a Sheets or a Rudders, there's scratch-offs, there's Keno, there's horse racing, and there's nobody there to say, hey, look, we think you might have an issue. So they could do that for the first 3 years of them being able to gamble. But you walk in a casino's door, there's a boatload of us there, and we're all trained on how to handle that stuff. And I just think that stuff has to be said, so people know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Again, we're going to wrap up public comment with that. At this point, staff has asked for direction, and that is our responsibility to provide. So, with that said, was there any clarification needed on anything did we hear anything new to push us in one direction or another?
I had one clarifying question that I would just like answered at some point if we could, and that was the question about whether or not this license, should it be approved, would be able to be expanded based on the state's decisions later down the line. That's just something I think we have the right to know. That's just a future question to be answered. And then I'll just leave it there for now.
I guess I would throw, how did we get gambling in Pennsylvania in the first place? The legislature pushed it forward, and they've made various modifications to gambling, alcohol, all that kind of stuff through the years. Decisions that are well above our level. and everything, so.
I'll try to research that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important
Try to find
question. I don't, that's just something I would like to know as a township council person. I guess I have just just one comment. I just want to thank everybody for speaking and remind everybody that we have done a very careful and thorough job trying to put all of the information, the dates, correspondence, any solicitor opinion we've made public. I just want you to encourage you that if you have questions about where this started and whether or not this was publicly advertised, et cetera, it's all on the website. This is not a responsibility of ours legally. This is us trying to be good stewards of, our positions for the government. So I just encourage you to, if you have questions about where we've been and where the state has been, we've included the state's the state's information as well as to best as we know it, which again isn't a legal requirement of ours. That's us putting a lot of staff time into organizing that on our website. So I just wanted to make sure everybody here knew that.
Right, and I think that's important because I throughout the comments and everything, I did hear some clear misunderstanding of some of the dates and some of the actions or inactions or whatnot in that. So thank you for bringing that forward. It's time to decide what we are or aren't doing at this point. What I believe we have is a decision on whether to send a letter urging the Gaming Commission to deny the pending approval or pending decision. And I think we can start there. The other thing that I heard was potentially making the Gaming Commission aware of what we're aware of.
Right.
And that's a discussion too. I think we need to start with the first level of that in whether we're going to do that. And candidly, the easiest way is for somebody to make a motion and see if it gets a second and we take a vote.
I mean, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Can I ask a question first?
Please.
Because I do distinctly remember us discussing the second option, right? Just sending and saying, hey, we're aware of this. This is what, we're hearing. And I just wanted to go over again what we discussed that because I can't quite recall it.
Can I make the motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we're gonna discuss it.
Yep.
So, okay. I move that College Township forward the correspondence that we've received since the closing of the state's public hearing, indicating that this is the correspondence that we have received since their public hearing has closed.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it just to get the discussion on the table.
Okay, good deal. I was going to say, if you weren't, I was.
Point of clarification, question. From the point of the public information session on August 16th of 2021, or of the close of receipt of public comment?
The close of receipt of public comment.
The June 12th.
So that would
This
be
summer.
June 12th of 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is what I was
I
thinking.
just wanted to clarify.
No, I appreciate that, yeah.
Yep. Very clear. Okay, discussion. Or we can go right to a call to question.
I had a question. If we can back up, because I didn't get a chance to, when you asked Carla, I had the same question. If we could get clarification on, does it take legislative action to change Category 4 casino restrictions, for lack of a better term?
Okay.
We just went through several years where a lot of things were changed by executive order. Kind of bypassing legislation. So I think I know what the answer is, but I think it's come up tonight, and just like everything else that's come up, we've done our due diligence and we've vetted those questions.
Okay.
So I think that would be useful knowledge for us and to offer on the website, just to get confirmation on what I suspect it is, or hope it is.
And
Not
again, I
related
think-
to the motion, but
I was just gonna ask, is the
Backing up
answer
the
to that,
request.
is
Yeah.
that answer relative to,
it was part of the information questions that have come in since then, so it's somewhat related. On the motion, though,
yes, please.
I'd like to know what format, are we talking about just sending links to the CNET, or what are we?
What was your thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking correspondence, written correspondence, I guess primarily. I mean, CNET's publicly available, as is a written correspondence, but.
But so is everything else.
Right, so if, I guess including a link to CNET, sure. I mean, everybody who's spoken publicly, although we have it in the minutes, I mean, yeah, right. So minutes and consent agenda as it relates to the casino since June 2022. That's where I'll land on that.
Okay.
What was June 22? Is June 22 when the Gaming Commission said they wouldn't take any more public comment?
June 12th was the date that the Gaming Commission closed public comment, their receipt, the Gaming Commission's receipt of public comment. Before that time, comments from the public went directly to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. They received them, they recorded them, they logged them, whatever they do with that public comment, they took it. As of the 12th of June of this year, they closed that window. Since that time, we have received substantially, I would assume, most if not all the correspondence that has been directed at a casino in the state college. We have received that here at College Township. So I'm assuming that is the correspondence and the discussions
Yeah, both
and all of that.
pro
that
and
we're-
against,
right, absolutely.
and any of the correspondence, and with the simple declaration that this is the correspondence that we have received since closing. Yeah, and that's simple.
So my question would be to Louis on whether he feels a letter could be crafted such to convey to
Well, I
protect
have
the.
two concerns about it. The first, the overriding issue is the intent in forwarding this to encourage the Gaming Commission to either delay or deny the permit? And if it is, then you have the same liabilities if you just said that. That's first. Second, if they've closed public comment and you send them public comment, other than you expressing an opinion, why is it not just still public comment that they would ignore? Anyone here or out there has access to your website, can send everything that's on there. The township doesn't have to send it, or the Gaming Commission can look at it themselves. But my impression is the Gaming Commission is saying, from what I was just told, there is no more public comment. We're not going to take it. But if you send it, they might take it because now it's not public comment. It's governmental comment, and that's what I'm encouraging you not to do because of the potential liability. And I think the likely result is they're going to say that's public comment. We're not going to take it. But I don't know that. Never dealt with that. The expandable issue, I think, based on state law, agencies, just like your staff, they can't change the rules. You have to pass something. The state has to pass something. So I don't think the Gaming Commission can change the category of the license. But the legislature can change the rules, and apparently from what the first speaker said, that's happened in the past, but that's the legislature that does that. Not the bureaucracy, not the agency.
Gaming Commission.
They have to act within the statutes.
Slippery slope. Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, we're gonna need to take action.
I mean, I seconded the motion in order to have this discussion.
I understand.
And in order to hear what we
Yes.
just heard.
Dustin, was your question answered?
Yeah, but I asked a question before the motion because of the clarifications that we needed on what it looked like. That's why I wanted to clarify prior to having the motion. So I think we should have another motion clarifying exactly that we're sending a letter with enclosures of correspondence, right? Like, I want to know exactly
You're
what I'm voting
welcome to make an amendment.
Yeah.
for. Well,
You amend the
I don't
current
support the motion, so I'm not going to.
Okay.
So,
All right, so let's get to it. Call
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question of Louis?
Yes, please.
Are you saying that the fact that it would come from us as a body negates what the intent was? Or are they both considerations? I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow that.
I think what I was trying to say is if your intent in sending it is to cause a delay or denial, then that's what poses the liability. And it would appear that may be the case if, in fact, the Gaming Commission has said we're not going to take any more public comment and you're trying to put public comment in as government comment. Either way, they may not take it. I think it does pose more risk by sending it than not. If it gets sent by someone else, and all these people here have it, it's on the website, all they have to do is send a link, I guess. I get stuff like that all the time. I've even gotten it from this group, links to read things, most of which I think I'd say I read all of it. That's not this body taking any action. And I don't see any problem with that because you put it on your website in the normal course of the way you do business every day, every meeting I've ever been to, every time you've gotten an email, you put it on your website. Sometimes you haven't put legal opinions on, but the legal opinion wasn't on approve or deny, it's on the technicalities of it, and you chose to do that. But anyone can send that. I don't see the advantage of the township, speaking as your solicitor, taking the risk of becoming involved when anyone can do that. Can say, here's a link to the comments College Township received. Just like that petition that you got a copy of it, but the Gaming Commission has it.
Okay, very good. Paul, anything else?
I can't see you, Paul, that's why I'm not looking your way. I don't know if you can tell.
We can't see you.
All right, no, I believe that answers my question, thank you.
Okay, I'm calling the question.
Do we want to open?
I'm sorry, what?
We can open for public comments or not? After the motion?
We've had public comment.
Okay.
I was gonna say we had over an hour and a half of public comment. Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All those, I'm sorry, was that an aye, Paul?
All those in favor of sending the letter?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Did you vote?
No.
Okay, we're calling the question. All those opposed, please say no.
No.
No. Motion fails.
What is wrong with you? Why don't you be brave and do the right thing?
Folks, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess.
Why did we have this meeting in the first place? I would like to know.
I got her.
Lindsay, please.
Got her. Yeah.
thank you. We're going to reconvene this meeting. I believe we are at MB2, Cable Franchise Engagement Agreement with Patton Harris College. Adam?
Yes, we were notified earlier this month that Chantel Corporation, which is basically the Shenandoah Cable Television, is actively pursuing franchise agreements with State College Borough and Ferguson Township. They initiated franchise discussions with those two municipalities. Both Ferguson and the borough were members of the Center Area Cable Consortium. For whatever reason, Chantel initiated those conversations with only those two individual municipalities. However, since that occurred late this summer, Chantel has expressed an interest to expand that to the other municipalities in the center region, at least and specifically to College, Patton, and Harris Township. So while this is not a Center Area Cable Consortium initiative in and of itself, the three municipalities, College, Harris, and Ferguson, have been asked simultaneously to enter into a cable franchise agreement or a negotiation for an agreement with Chantel. Cohen Law Group, whom we're familiar with and who the CAC has worked with in the past in advancing our existing cable franchise agreement with Comcast, is provided us with an engagement letter. It's part of your packet, where they provide the legal expertise to help us navigate that negotiation. The interesting caveat here is that Chantel has actually agreed to cover the cost of that legal representation for the municipalities in working through to conclusion of cable franchise agreement. So what we have here tonight is a question for council as to whether or not we would like to engage with the Cohen Law Group for the purposes of pursuing, along with our partners in this particular case, Patton and Harris Township, a cable franchise agreement with Chantel. I have no additional details. I have no knowledge of existing conversations that currently or have been ongoing with either the borough or Ferguson Township. And frankly, until we have an engagement letter, I don't think that I will know any details. So the question here for council is whether or not you're agreeable to allowing Cohen to represent us as they and we work with Harris and Patton on a potential cable agreement with Chantel.
Okay, I'm going to ask the real obvious question. Why isn't this going through the cable consortium?
I don't have an answer for that.
Too late to go through the cable consortium?
I don't know that. My suspicion is that I suspect that through their initial contacts with State College Borough and Ferguson Township, they recognize that there is a broader community here, and as they work with that broader community, Harris, Patton, and College Township, they will realize that there's even yet a broader community for they to work with. I would, and it's pure suspicion on my part, I have no data to back this up, but I would not be surprised that eventually this does become a CAC issue. But at the moment, for whatever reasons, I just don't have enough information to be able to provide you with any more.
Okay, so the question is, Cohen representing us, this is probably which is who we would probably have normally, and that the Chantel is covering the cost of that.
That is correct.
Okay. That doesn't create any kind of conflict for Cohen being paid by one guy and
Representing another.
representing another.
I don't believe it does. And,
Obviously, they offered it.
They made the offer.
Yeah,
and-
yeah,
and,
okay.
Presumably has been vetted on by the Cohen Law Group. I have not asked Lewis to take a look at this.
Okay.
And I can do so, but I've not. Until we have some degree of standing, I just don't think that I'm going to have any information. That's probably
I think that sounds like
the
the paradox.
biggest issue I think that I have.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Eric, please.
Yeah, if they had approached the consortium, would our existing agreement with Cohen take care of negotiating with them?
No.
So we would have still had to have this action even if, so our agreement with Cohen the cable consortium's agreement is specific to Comcast.
Was specific to that cable franchise agreement. That's correct.
Okay, because that's the first thing I thought about was, wait a minute. You know, we got a legal representation, contractual or whatever in place already. You know, why would we do this? It sounds like we'd have to do it anyways.
I'm positive we would have to do it anyways. The one thing I neglected to mention is the existing cable franchise agreement that we have with Comcast is a non-exclusive agreement, which means that we are not restricted in any way from working out other cable franchise agreements with other providers. So there's no type of a restriction on us through the existing franchise agreement with Comcast to do this.
And the cost for Cohen, for the consortium, does it use the Miller formula or some other formula to divide?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering how that cost was divided up.
It's a modified CATA formula.
Yeah,
Does it take in cable viewership within,
ratings.
All right.
I'm fine with that. I would have preferred a different approach, but it sounds like we'd have to engage them regardless.
Right. Paul, any comments, questions? Excuse me.
No, other than that, I cannot see you.
Hi.
We're still here.
Yeah, thank you. No other comments or questions.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Is it just the bird's eye view you can't see, or?
Any of it, we were.
Is the lid,
There you go. Oh, sorry, I don't know. I must have shut them off.
Yeah, the owl got paused.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if someone is comfortable making the motion,
I'll move
please.
to authorize the College Township Council Chair or Township Manager to execute an engagement letter for legal services and representation with the Cohen Law Group for the purpose of negotiating cable franchise agreement with Shenandoah Cable Television operating as Shentel.
Thank you, CAC rep. Do you
I
have a
will
motion?
second that with a clarification that it is the Cohen Law Group.
I got that, yeah.
And just in case there's some Cohen Law Group out there, I didn't want to
Sorry.
Yeah.
accidentally.
Good, okay.
Quick.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. MB3, Wildlife Corridors Protection, Penn Environment Letter. Adam.
Yes, I believe at our last meeting, we had received as a piece of correspondence, a letter from Penn Environment, which is a research and policy center, regarding municipal support for wildlife corridors in Pennsylvania. And there was an expression on the part of council that they would like to have this returned to the agenda for future discussion. So it is here this evening for you folks to discuss, and I'm assuming that the discussion is going to center around whether or not College Township would like to have its name added to the supporting communities for wildlife corridors.
Okay. Am I correct? Dustin brought this forward?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think I was probably just the first one to speak up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just, do we know whether or not there'll be, it's just simply, hey, we're supporting and we want you to add us, or if they're also offering some, help in saying to our Parks and Rec, this is how you could, improve, for instance, your utility right-of-ways and things like that. Is there anything like that?
I did look them up, and there was no, I thought maybe there'd be a resolution that we could pass or something, and there was nothing that we could include. I mean, there was nothing that I could find, so.
Can we just say,
We support.
put our name on it?
Yeah, two things. Yes, I think initially they're just looking for, we'd like to add as many municipalities as we can to support the concept. But I think the secondary thing is I need to do some research as far as, to your point in question, are there other initiatives, other educational resources, things that Penn Environment is offering that is specific to wildlife corridors? That information I don't know.
So I think first conceptually, are we in support of this? I think I'm saying this. Does staff want to contact these folks, find out what they're looking for from us?
Sure. If there's a consensus of council, what I'll do is we'll reach out, we'll find out what we need to do to be added as a supporter and get any additional details that we can relative to their programs that they may have.
Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I know there's no townships or municipalities listed here, are there? Am I missing something? It's all individuals?
Well, you do have individuals, that's true. But I think they're referencing the chairs of those organizations. Are they not?
Okay.
The Penn Valley Conservation Association's on there, we have to do it, I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know, it's interesting. It is individuals. Like chairman, it doesn't always say
Right.
council, council
Well,
person, commissioner.
and just because you're the chair of a body doesn't mean the body supports that. The chair is one vote of that board, so.
It doesn't change my support for it.
Right, and yeah.
Well, if you look through, everyone is a chair, a vice chair, a secretary.
They're just the signatory.
No, there's also council persons and supervisors and.
Yeah, so I think we need more detail. We need to know
For
what.
anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm hearing from council. Great,
All right. We'll bring this back at a future date.
thanks.
Yeah, we need more agenda items.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Because that's basically what we did, right? We just added another agenda item.
Well, we re-added. Next time it'll be old business.
It could be part of the consent agenda.
Potentially.
True.
Okay. Staff informatives, or is there anything in those that staff wishes to bring to our attention?
I want to know where the ordinance enforcement report is.
That was the last one.
Oh, that's right.
I do kind of want to just ask, what's the deal with this UAJA State College Borough payment? I've seen it a couple times coming up now.
The what?
The State College Borough owing money to UAJA.
It's old business 4 on the staff.
On draft.
SI1.
I just wondered if anybody had any additional insight into this, since it's now the second time I've seen it, at least the second time.
This is likely going to result in litigation between the borough and UAJA. And as I understand it, it stems from the ending of an existing agreement between State College Borough and UAJA for the borough's sewage, okay? And a renewal of said agreement that was structured on the UAJA structured as being in EDUs versus the borough's volumetric billing. And somewhere along the way, in this time period prior to the expiration of the agreement, and then since the expiration of the agreement, there has been, there's not been, I'm trying to phrase this properly. There has been, and I had the phrase that I was going to use, and it flew out of my head. There's been a lack of coordination on the part of one party or another. In part, I believe that the borough has been somewhat hampered as a result of staff turnover, and I believe that as a result of that staff turnover, some of the important dates and timelines were failed. They missed those timelines. And because of that, this is festered. So I think the only way for this to truly get resolved, because at the core of this, again, my understanding, is this difference between the way that the borough has been paying based on volumetric and the way that UHAA wants the billing to be modified, which is with EDUs. And I don't know that they're going to be able to get that worked out. Amy, help me if you can.
No, that's probably the best way to summarize it. The agreements, I think, expired in, I think, 18 or 19, and so they've been letting it ride, and obviously with staff turnover, it kind of just fell by the wayside and opened up the door. Because the agreement is that UAJ will treat the sewage, they don't have to, so there's kind of an obvious need. And since they're out of the Penn State plant completely, they don't have that option anymore to go there.
I didn't understand that.
Sorry.
Well, here, let me tell you again.
So
Timing is everything.
Is there a likelihood that this could affect rates moving ahead? Is there some kind of negative?
For borough residents,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely for the borough.
Borough and, borough residents, borough businesses, yes. For other customers of UAJA, I don't think that has a direct impact on other customers.
Well, yeah, if it does, it actually might have a positive, because the borough would be paying more for the treatment of their sewage, which, your the plant costs are the plant cost. You haven't changed volume, but you've now created more revenue from the existing volume. And so hopefully you would see a positive impact in that, but who knows? But it is an interesting quandary. And if you remember Tom Songer, I mean, this was the whole basis of where he came before us and came before COG and everything, of the difference of volumetric versus EDU costs, all that, so. But yeah, and anytime you're not paying your whole bill and the guy on the other side's expecting it, yeah. So. Okay, any other questions on staff informatives? Council staff, other matters. Adam, do you have any?
I do not. Rich and I will be attending Pennsylvania Municipal League Leadership Conference. That's what that's being called.
Leadership Summit, yeah.
Leadership Summit tomorrow and Saturday in Pittsburgh. I have nothing else.
Okay. Please.
I just received a text from Paul saying he was confused about the last vote when it was being made, and I just didn't want the meeting to end without.
Oh, sure.
Just with I've been on that end of the screen before.
So are we talking about the wildlife corridors?
Oh, no.
Or which vote?
Not sure.
No, actually about the letter, and it was, I thought I was voting to send the letter, and I did not. So that was, I should have asked for a clarification.
Okay.
But
So in that case, is there not, can
you
he make a motion for a recall vote, or what happens there? I mean, There's
It was really hard to understand the way the motion was made, and that was my fault for not asking for a clarification.
There's probably something in Robert's Rules of Order, and
Well, I believe by the next meeting you have
Yeah.
time to recall the whole
I
vote.
think you do have that option, because it's come up before. I think you can
Yeah.
you have until the next meeting to figure it out and take action, so.
So I'm not sure what the wording is of that, but
I think that option exists, and I think you don't have to deal with it now.
Yeah, okay. So
Now,
we'll
that's
need-
based on my foggy memory of having
Hilltop.
to do this one other time.
Was it Hilltop?
it was.
Oh,
It
okay.
might have been, or Oak Hall, I don't know, they're all.
Yeah. All right, Paul, so I guess we will consult with the solicitor and/or Robert's Rules experts, maybe,
Which I am not.
PSATs.
It's entirely my fault and for not being in the room. I just wasn't feeling well tonight.
Nope, understood, Paul, but, we'll take a look at that and see, we want to have the correct record. So
Thank you.
we'll definitely do that, but,
So do you want to put that on?
We'll discuss it.
yeah. My only other matter is, I greatly appreciate the conscientious thought that I know each of you put into this. It was certainly not, some of the things that got indicated as our motives or whatever, it's difficult at times to just sit and get it, but I think we did our diligence, and then we had to vote. So I appreciate Carla bringing the motion forward, Eric seconding it, and then, we continued on our discussion, and, it goes into the typical, if it was easy, everybody would do it. The cavalier method of saying 20 million is insignificant was very difficult. I do understand it, but it's hard. And in our normal fashion, the majority of people aren't, there's clearly the majority of people who chimed in were against. But
Yeah, that's not a statistical valid sample, but if I could, first of all, Paul, you're looking pretty flush.
I am. I'm not feeling very well, but I'm wondering, should I make a motion for a recall? Is that the way we do this or not?
It's a motion to reconsider, and it will take a second to figure out how to do it, but,
okay.
Well, we'll just keep talking while we figure it out.
I mean, I'm willing to wait for you, Paul, if you need
Yeah,
us
and
to.
I had something for discussion to
Please.
kill some time.
Well, I'll try to look up as well.
To follow up on Rich's comment, yeah, our judgment's fair game. Our integrity, though, is not. And I think it's reasonable to draw the line when someone starts questioning integrity. God, I question my judgment every day, and my wife questions it 3 or 4 times a day. So I think that's fair game, and we put it out there anticipating it will be questioned. Integrity, different level. Next meeting, I'm going to be traveling that day. I have about 620 miles to cover. It's going to take me about 10 hours. My plan is to be in place where I will have internet access to participate. Do we have any idea what's on the agenda?
The next meeting,
Or you still need some more time?
No, I'm actually good, I think I found it.
Okay.
Wildlife corridors will be there.
yep, wildlife corridors.
And it does
We'll
help.
have a resolution to pass for the tax, for
Yeah,
property tax.
that would be
that's
part of the
just-
consent
Right,
agenda.
so I
Those are really non-issues.
I don't think we have anything added.
We have 2 presentations. We have
Yes.
Chief King will be here, I know.
And the skate park.
And we have skate park request for funding. So those two things are special
And
presentations.
then there's no new or old yet.
So the only thing that I know of right now that we'll be deciding is going to be the overall hours for the budget, for the police budget.
Chief King, Chief Gardner?
Yeah.
Chief Gardner.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I said.
Okay, I think Carla's ready. I just wanted to make sure, since there's a lot of variables in a 10-hour drive, that I wasn't going to be, if I'm late, I'm not going to be cause us to not have a quorum. Does it look like that's not going to be the case? I'm putting that out there.
I plan on being here.
Okay.
Motion is carried, made by a member who voted on
I do.
All right, so Paul, if,
what?
I'd like to make a motion to recall that.
to reconsider.
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 Requires a second.
A second.
Well, okay, just, so in my reading here,
Can you reread the motion, please?
the motion to reconsider may be made only by a member who voted on the prevailing side, so that would
Yeah,
be the no.
all of us,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, okay. Disputes and answer whether make of the motion, debatable to extent.
And it can only be processed after all business is finished.
Yeah, and it has to be the same day. I'm reading it has to be the
I
same
am
day.
too.
Okay, so we do need to do it this evening.
Okay. So Jen, are you going to be able to read back the motion that we voted on to the best of your ability?
Yeah, to the best of my ability. Motion, do I need to get closer to a microphone?
Yeah, that would.
I can hear you.
Move that down a little
It
bit.
doesn't go anywhere.
I'm sorry.
Motion to formally send the correspondence since the closing of the public hearing indicating to, you're going to have to say it again, Carla.
The motion to
Formally
send any correspondence and minutes to the
Yeah,
Gaming
that's-
Control Board after the end of public comment, June 12th,
June
12th,
12th.
2022, with a simple note stating that's what this is.
With the clarification that it was after the 20, Nick, you made the clarification that it was after July 12th.
Yeah, I think I captured it.
Minutes and
Yeah.
consent agenda.
June.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yep.
No, that's good.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, so
A little bit.
there,
Yep, I got it now. That was, the clarifications were confusing from a distance, and I should have asked for clarity.
okay. So Paul made the motion to reconsider.
Mm-hmm.
A second.
We have a second. So we're voting, at this point, we're voting
Again, on the motion.
to allow the reconsideration or
Hang on.
to have the vote, or are we voting on the original motion?
If the motion to reconsider passes, then the body takes up the original motion as it was just before the vote was taken.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Voting for the reconsideration.
So at this point, we're taking a motion we have a motion and a second to reconsider. I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. At this point, we will ask Ms. Stilson to remake the motion
Remake the
as we
motion
just discussed.
to send any correspondence and minutes related to the casino since the closing of public comment on June 12th, 2022 to the Gaming Control Board with a simple note stating what is in the contents.
Okay, we have the motion. I think Eric seconded it. Are you
Oh,
comfortable
that's right,
seconding?
yeah, I'll second it again.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I was gonna say, you better get it right this time. All those opposed, please say no.
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 Motion fails 1-4. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration on that. It's difficult when you're remote.
Yes, it is.
Go to bed.
Yeah, well, when you're sick and when you have a full room and
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, so that was another matter. We cleared that up. Any other matters? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion, I second, we are adjourned.
And we're not reconsidering that.